The Patreon pick this week, as requested by our lovely Patreon, Lava Skin, thank you for the request, was the 2011 film We Need to Talk About Kevin. And if you'd also like to get your movie watched and reviewed by us, please go to guapish.com/Patreon or patreon.com/Guapish and get your movie in the queue for only $1 a month. How exciting. This movie is about a mother coping with her psycho fucking kid doing some horrible shit. And it also non-linearly tells the story of the titular Kevin's upbringing and what potentially caused him to do the act.
Fun fact, this movie was shot in 30 days.
Oh.
My favorite part of the reviews is when Tanner forgets he's supposed to do a fun fact and panics.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Dude, it's okay.
That's all gonna get cut out by the truncate silence, though, so now you look like the idiot, not me.
Oh, bother.
Holy smokes, he's right.
Tanner, what did you think of this film? It sounded like you were the biggest hater.
I am this film's biggest hater, almost assuredly. I'm sitting at a C.
Fascinating. Dylan, how about you?
Personally, I gave it a B+.
Whoa. Jackson?
I really enjoyed this film. I'm currently at an A+.
Okay. I didn't like it nearly that much. I still enjoyed it a decent bit, though. I'm actually with Dylan on this one at a B+.
Hell yeah. So, guys, I think it's time we talk about Kevin. What do we have to say?
What's funny is, like, they actually don't really talk about Kevin all that much.
Well, I don't know if we should really take the title super seriously, Tanner.
I mean, I think we should.
Just because we watched a movie called Flashpoint Paradox doesn't mean we gotta take this movie's title seriously.
What the fuck? So my big negatives and why I'm such a big hater is I thought this movie was really boring. One big problem I had is I thought it showed its cards way too early. Like, you figure out, like, the whole thing is the kid's a school shooter, like, within the first 15 minutes. And then it feels like they're dragging out that reveal, even though you know it, like, right away. And I don't know why they did that. And the other problem is I have some real hard, like, believability issues with this one. Like, especially, like, the biggest one is him doing a fucking school shooting with a bow and arrow.
I fucking
like,
called it that one of your biggest problems would be that aspect of the film.
I unironically burst out laughing out loud when it was that shot of him fucking slinging arrows in that gym. It's just like, my suspension of disbelief could not keep up for that at all. And it's kind of a bummer because I think the ideas that this movie wants to explore are really interesting. And I wish this movie was better at actually exploring them than it actually is.
What kind of ideas?
Like what it's like to be a parent whose kid did this horrible deed, and what it takes to turn a kid into that kind of a person, stuff like that.
Mental derangement. What's funny is I agree with pretty much every point Tanner said so far. I guess the movie just affected me differently. This was one of those movies where it's like, okay, we know some shit happened, but we're obviously starting at the beginning, so I think us knowing what happens isn't that big of a deal. I think what intrigued me with this movie was following along the journey to get to that point. Like, I was like, alright, what aspects of this woman's life is fucked up? And, like, why is she the way that she is? Why is her son the way that he is? I will say I was a little disappointed to find out, literally from birth, it was just some, like, mental derangement he has. There's nothing, like, from birth, he fucking hated her. And I think that was a weird approach, in my personal opinion. I don't know if I would have gone with that. It just feels so out of place. Now, granted, people could say this is unrealistic, this is realistic. In my opinion, anything's possible. I'm sure babies can be born hating their moms. The likeliness of it happening is whatever. But I guess what I liked is, yeah, the cat string theory of this movie, where it's like, I know what's happening, I'm not interested in it, but I'm interested enough to keep chasing it. But yeah, I will agree, especially with the suspension of disbelief. There's just so much shit in this movie that I was like, okay, how realistic is this that happened? Was the hate and ridicule towards the mom unwarranted? yes and no. Yes, because it's her child and she should have had it taken care of, but, like, no, because she tried her entire, like, life, as we were shown, to, like, connect with her son and, like, make her life better, and she just ultimately got, like, shut down at every opportunity in her life.
Why the fuck did she only move to a different house in the same city?
So she can be close to her kid in jail?
She could move to a different city, or at least a different school district that's near the jail.
Punish herself.
True. That's kind of
That
like
could be part of it.
That's kind of like the other fucked up thing about it too. Is like, at first it could be like, why the fuck is she still here? Everybody hates her. Her son hates her. She has nobody left. But it's like that exact reason. It's like a double-edged sword where it's like the only thing she has left in her life is her son, despite, you know, how fucked up he is, how fucked up he made her life, and like how fucked up, you know, everything is. And I think that just goes to show, like, with her character, it's like the, what is it? What do they call it in Greek? The agape, motherly love. Like, it's just unconditional. She will always love him regardless of what he does. And I think, like, regardless of everything that happens in that movie, I think that is a really touching thing to think about at the end of the day, where it's like, regardless of how she felt in the moment, at the end of it all, she's like, he's my son, I'm gonna keep trying to connect with him, not only because he's the only thing I have left in my life, but also just because, like, it's a mother's job to take care of her kids, and I think that was a pretty standout message, personally. But yeah, still fucked up that fucking... What kind of baffled me is, like, obviously we get to the part where it's like the daughter's not around, the husband's not around. I had the assumption that the husband just, like, divorced and left, but why is the kid in jail? And that, like, I kind of suspected that at some point Kevin would kill the sister. Never did I actually expect for them to die the way they did, but also the dad dying. That was very out of left field, personally.
Yeah, I was shocked by that, too.
Not to say it doesn't fit, but shocked that it happened. I know I sound like I'm hating on this movie. I think the fact that this movie can make me I give credence to any movie that can make me be introspective and thoughtful about a movie. Everybody's very aware I don't do this. So I can appreciate the thought that this movie has in it, at least. So I'm gonna pass it off now, and yeah.
I'm gonna continue the hating despite also giving it a B+. I do agree with Dylan and Tanner, the aspects of, like, it's way too obvious from, like, right off the get that Kevin's a fucking psychopath. I wish they would have been a lot more subtle with that, as well as just, like, how that develops, because, like, we don't really see Kevin develop into a psychopath. He just appears broken from birth. Like, the closest thing we get to it is when his mom breaks his arm at one point, but he's also, like, already obviously rotten then, because that's, like, why she fucking breaks his arm, because he's a little shit, and fuck him. But, like, we also have a line later in the film where they're playing mini golf, and Kevin's like, where do you think I get this personality from? But also, throughout the film, we don't see that part of the mom at all.
Yeah.
It's like...
It was such a bad line.
Like, to that point, we're always seeing her try and make an effort to be kind to Kevin and stuff like that. Like, sure, there are times in which she's not being, like, as attentive and as loving as she could be, but she's obviously still, like, trying. We don't see her be, like, a shitty person like him. So it just kind of feels as though, like, by the end of the film, it's trying to convince us that it's telling a different story from what it did, which is something I didn't really like. It's like it was trying to fucking trick me. And I didn't see any of that shit movie, so why are you trying to do that? Like, the film is constantly trying to display that there are these parallels between Kevin and his mom, like, through, like, a bunch of imagery with, like, reflections and stuff like that, but we basically never see how they're actually alike in the film at all. And that's something that bothers me.
I'm gonna slightly disagree with you. I did see sort of the parallel. I don't know if actually I saw a parallel between the mom and Kevin. I don't know if this is the parallel the movie actually wanted you to make, and that was just that kind of, like, her sort of animating spirit in her life was basically just sort of meaningless hedonism, just doing whatever felt good to her in the moment. And he's the exact same way. Obviously, he's taking it in a much darker direction than her, but it's still the same sort of, basis for their actions.
I guess we don't see enough of the mom's personal life is the big problem, except for, like, the after effects of Kevin fucking doing the school shooting. So we don't really see her happy at all, except for when she's in fucking Spain. And, like, that was basically it. So I guess we we don't get enough of the mom's development in order to really draw those parallels. For me, is the big problem.
I can agree with that.
However, I do think it's interesting that the film is focusing more so on the exploration of the trauma that she has from being a parent of a school shooter, and that part's really cool and interesting. At the same time, it does just feel like it's attempting to do this other shit that just feels pretty undercooked for me. Okay, Jackson, why'd you love this film so much?
Yeah, I disagree with most everything you guys said, generally speaking, but also I didn't want this to be me in a 1v3 for 20 minutes, so I chose to not say anything. Yeah, I was incredibly engrossed in this entire movie. I never really felt like it dropped my entertainment. It was a very thought-provoking, interestingly shot movie. It's incredibly well acted. I think everyone does a great job with it. Cinematography is incredible. I think it has a lot of things just to make you think about, its messaging. Tanner had a big negative about like the movie's trying to present these interesting things to think about, and it doesn't do it in a great way. I think it does. I think it has a lot of things that you can take away from it. There's different interpretations of Kevin's upbringing, generally speaking, about why he turned out the way he is, his mother's reaction to this information, and just like how she perceives everything going forward. And I just thought it was a great movie. That was fantastic. I don't have an issue with the fucking school shooter scene. Obviously, you can nitpick his setup however you fucking want. At the end of the day, he's got a bow and arrow, and he's in an elevated space shooting fish in a barrel. I mean, I don't really have a fucking issue with that. He killed a bunch of people. We see it. I don't care. It's fine. I think even the reveal of it is well done, especially when they show the dead, father and daughter. That shit is heartbreaking. And generally speaking, I think it's all well done. I don't care that they, I guess, spoil it. It doesn't matter. The point of the movie isn't the fact that he did this. It's the after effects of him doing it and why it happened in the first place. Just because we know that it happened early on doesn't matter. That's completely irrelevant to the point of the film for me. I think it does a really good job just having tiny little character clues throughout. You guys had complaints about the mother's character. I would agree. I think one of the weaker parts of this film and what drags it down from something being like an S tier for me is just the fact that they don't have a lot of time to fully flesh out the characters as much as they'd want you to be. Like, this is an adaptation of a book, and in the book, it is much more of the mom is an unreliable narrator, and we know more about her actual development of Kevin. One detail specifically is she obviously, we know this from the movie. She didn't want Kevin. This was an unplanned pregnancy maybe, or the father wanted a kid, she didn't. She wanted to be free and do whatever the fuck she wanted in her life. And right off the bat, if you have a kid you don't want, that's just starting off on a terrible base, right? And we see in all sorts of scenes, the fucking kids screaming. That's what babies do. Who cares, right? But she takes it all very personally. And you don't have to know, we don't need a bunch of scenes of her being, a neglectful mother or something. We can take from context clues the fact that she's not really being super there for her kid. We see all sorts of scenes, the fucking ball scene. She's just kind of doing it out of a feeling of obligation for the most part. And I feel like that does add credence to this is, unreliable narrator. The mom actually was a bad parent, and that's why Kevin was, grown up this way. He's a smart kid. We know that. You can also, of course, liken his behavior to psychopathy. I think that's completely valid. And a smart kid that has a neglectful mother that doesn't like him is going to pick up on this apathy towards him pretty quickly, and he takes that very personally, given he's a fucking psychopath, and that's why we see him act this way pretty early on, and just, it's all in her head for the most part at the start. I think, generally speaking, with how you raise a psychopath, right, you can raise one that can be totally normal, but unfortunately in this instance, because of the events of her not wanting the kid, it led to a bad situation where it kind of just spiraled out of control. And once it got bad, it just kept getting worse because then she just kept thinking it was more of a personal thing, and Kevin played along with that. But yeah, generally speaking, I'm a big fan of this film. I think it was fantastic. I'd definitely like to watch it again. Big props to all the actors. Ezra Miller did a fantastic job. The kids, other than him, the other two, also did a fantastic job. The mother looked positively unruly through the film. This also is just so drenched in imagery. It is.
Oh yeah.
It is everywhere. This is a very artistic film. You can take this would be a great one to watch in a cinematography class or just a movie class in general, just because there is so much dissection you can do on just the different shots or maybe what they're trying to say. Like, even with, like, her cleaning the fucking red paint off her house, like, she's literally cleaning the blood off of the fucking property, you know? Like, it's everywhere, and I really like that, you know? It makes the movie really engaging to watch multiple times. I just thought it was generally fantastic.
That's actually one of the positives I was going to get. So, I'll get to my positive. I agree. You can definitely tell in the beginning of the movie, she is not ready to be a parent. She doesn't want to be a parent. She has visions of grandeur to travel the world and visit other countries, and she was hoping that her husband would have those same visions. But no, now she has to be a mom. She has to be responsible. She can't go on all these dream trips that she wants. I can definitely see the argument of she is, if it's a narrative from her perspective, I can see bias in the narrative. And this isn't a negativity or a criticism toward the movie. I'm just trying to elaborate from that side. I can definitely see a biased narrative where if we're supposed to be watching this movie from the mom's perspective, then yeah, everything she's doing is like, well, I try to connect with him, and like, this is how he's acting towards me, and this is what I did. So maybe that line that Nico pointed out that I agreed with, where it's like, well, where do you think I got it from? That's why it didn't work on me and Nico, because like, what the fuck does that mean? He's been a deranged kid from birth. But then with Jackson's explanation, if it's like the narrative from her perspective, maybe it's just like, the movie's not showing us what Kevin is seeing.
The whole movie's from her perspective. Like, this is the mom's movie, and it's all just her reaction to Kevin and his raising. So obviously, from her perspective, she was great.
Is the book also from her perspective, or is it...
No, the book is structured super differently. I didn't fucking read the book. From what I understand, it's like letters from her to Kevin, presumably maybe when he's in prison. I'm not entirely sure. But, it's a very different structure than... this.
Yeah, so if that's like stuff within the book, like I can understand how that sort of stuff would have come across much better within the book. But again, within this film, though, we just don't see enough of that stuff to really be able to come to that conclusion is the problem.
Yeah.
Personally, I completely disagree. I think the movie doesn't hold your hand about it. There's a lot you can draw from context clues.
But we don't get enough context clues is the problem. What we see from this film is that the mom is trying to be a good mom. She's trying to raise Kevin well. It's just, he seems like a fucking broken individual, so it's not working.
And again, I disagree with that perspective. That's the whole fucking point of it being an unreliable narrator.
Where it's like, yeah, obviously I can get why Kevin ended up being a psychopath.
I see the setup of having a kid. I see her being unhappy right from the start. I see this transitioning to her being apathetic with scenes raising the child. I see her throwing her fucking kid and breaking his arm because of him doing some dumb kid shit. But he was already psychotic
at that point is the problem.
He's still a little fucking baby. Are you stupid? I'm so confused on why you're confused about this, to be honest.
In that scene that you're referring to of him breaking his arm, he is an 8-year-old child in a diaper who intentionally shit his pants. I get why the mom was angry. Like, she just changed him. He shouldn't still be in diapers.
Yeah, but you don't throw your fucking kid across the room.
Not defending that action, but I'm just saying, he was already fucking destroyed at that point. He was already going to be a psychotic individual when he was grown up. I don't think it's the mom's fault for that.
And I disagree.
Much like this argument, I think in the movie there was just a self-fulfilling negative cycle. Anyway, I think, obviously I didn't catch all the other imagery. Jackson's a lot better at catching that than I am, but the big imagery moment in this movie that I think all of us saw, because if you didn't watch the movie, I liked how, yes, the red on the house in the car, obviously people threw it on her car, but I like how that... It didn't get it immediately, but I like how over the course of the movie, it's her slowly, like, scraping it off the windows, cleaning it off the walls, getting it off the porch, like, trying to wash it away. And it's such a big imagery for, reasons I don't need to explain. Her trying to wash away the blood and the sins that her son committed. But, like, and maybe I thought about... I don't know if there's about thinking too much into this movie, but, like, she ended up getting it, like, on her hands, under her fingernails, on her clothes, and it's like... She's trying to wash the blood away from the situation her son caused, but is ending up taking it onto herself and, like, is stained by the red paint, or aka the blood, in this scenario. I thought that was a really powerful visual throughout the whole thing. I think that's also what, like, intrigued me so much about this movie. But yeah, I guess I agree with Jackson in that case. I think the imagery in this movie is very strong. I liked it a lot.
I'd like to see someone make... a movie with the same general idea of this one, but today, because there's a new, more interesting aspect that plays into this sort of theme, which is that we're now seeing parents actually being, like, arrested and charged with sort of with crimes because of their children doing stuff like this. So I think that'd be interesting to see explored in a film.
Yeah, in the book, this film is supposed to take place, like, I think it's like a couple weeks before Columbine, so it's meant to be like before, like, school shootings really become a big thing.
That makes less sense.
I'm pretty sure was it still a bow and arrow in the book?
I'm pretty
I
sure
can't even
it was,
remember. Do you know that?
It was a crossbow,
Oh yeah, it's a crossbow in the book. That's
which
right.
is even dumber.
How's that dumber than a bow and arrow?
Because it's much slower to fire a crossbow than a bow and arrow.
True.
Especially for a high schooler. Also, where the fuck would he get a crossbow?
For hunting? I don't know.
Probably the same place you get a bow and arrow, I'd imagine.
Another aspect of the film that I enjoyed, however, was the ending. The ending was particularly good, that final conversation she has with Kevin before he's going up to big boy jail, where you can absolutely see that, like, his time and just the reality that he's about to go into, like, a much more brutal environment has definitely shaped his state of mind. He's had a lot more time to reflect on what he's done. And, like, as they're, like, hugging and you see him, like, he's, like, kind of moving his mouth, like, he's trying to get something out, and it almost looks like he's trying to say, I'm sorry. Like, all of this has really impacted him a lot, but he's not quite able to say it still. Like, that was just a great touch. I like that a lot.
Fun fact, that song that plays when she's walking away from Kevin in the final scene, I'm pretty sure the name is something along the lines of mother's last words to her son or something.
Huh.
Poetic.
Interesting.
But yeah, I agree. That last scene was fantastic. I think it does a lot of character building for Kevin.
Yeah.
Big fan of that. I like that it doesn't really give you everything. Big fan.
Well, are we done arguing about we need to talk about Kevin?
I suppose so. Jackson is a nurture kind of man, and I'm a nature. That's what we've come down to here. I'm sticking at a B+, personally.
Yeah, I'm staying at an A+. I could see myself raising this in the future, though.
I'm gonna stick with a C. I agree. Like I said, I think a lot of the ideas this movie tries to explore are really interesting and whatnot. It just, I found it very boring is the biggest problem. So exploring those ideas wasn't interesting enough in and of itself to make me want to rank this higher. So I'm gonna stick with a C.
I don't like you keep saying boring. You're using too much anti-art house language, man. Say it's a slow burn.
Yeah, I know I had a ton of negatives about this movie, but Jackson brought up a couple of fair points. I'm not going to change my rank by a crazy amount, but I'll at least raise it to an A-.
Based? Anyways, that lands at a B+ overall, right to the pile.